Okay. Hi guys, I'm back with another session of my interview series. Today I have with me Lannie Stabile. I hope I have pronounced your name correctly. Have I?
It's Lannie Stabile, but you were really
Oh,
close.
okay. Okay, I'll try again. Okay, so I have with me Lannie Stabile, right? Okay,
Correct.
perfect. Lannie Stabile is a queer Detroiter, is the winner of Outright's 2020 chapbook competition in poetry. The winning chapbook, Strange Furniture, is out with Neon Hemlock Press. She's a back-to-back finalist for the Glass Chapbook series and back-to-back semi-finalist for the Button Poetry Chapbook contest. Lenny currently holds the position of managing editor at Barron Magazine and is a member of the MMPR Collective. She was named the 2020 Best of the Net finalist. Her debut full length Good Morning to Everyone Except Men Who Name Their Dogs Use is out now with Cephalo Press. Recent publications are Bending Genres, Had, Reckon Review, and more. So let's welcome Lenny. Hi, Lenny.
Hi, and thanks so much for having me. I haven't had a video interview in a while, so it's really exciting.
I'm excited to have you today with me. Okay, so Lenny, my first question to you is when did you start writing?
Uh, I'd say that I started dabbling when I was 8 in third grade. I had this really great teacher who was teaching us how to do these web designs for creating a story, and so I started dabbling then. As far as poetry goes, though, that was a few years later. In sixth grade, I was 12 years old, and we had an assistant teacher who decided to do a poetry unit and said, hey, try your hand at a poem. And I wrote this poem about a lion. It was called Long Live the King. And I remember that the whole class really enjoyed it. The teachers enjoyed it. And I thought, well, maybe I'm good at this. So I continued writing since then.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so I'm really glad that you found somebody who inspired you. My next question to you is how important writing is for you. Like, how do you see yourself? If I ask you that you don't have to write from today onwards, how will that impact you? Will that, haunt you? What will be your, reaction? And, because is writing that important to you, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, writing is very important to me. If I never published another poem or another book, I'd still be writing. I've found it very cathartic, especially writing about my personal sexual assault experiences. And like I can talk about it now. I wasn't able to do that before I started writing about it. So it's really important to me. And I think sometimes writing, you can say things that you're not actually able to say, and that builds a bridge, and it's just really important. So if you told me today that I can stop writing, I wouldn't listen to you.
Okay. Okay, so I'm actually very glad that you spoke about your trauma and everything because I was actually going through some of your work and I explored some of the themes. So I was actually going to ask you about that because the themes that I have noticed are nostalgia, trauma, and sometimes you have also incorporated Greek mythology. So I want to ask you about that. That how difficult was it for you to write about such traumatizing experiences, and what kind of themes do you usually explore when you are writing?
Yeah, I found it very difficult to write about it at first. In fact, nearly impossible. And so I made this deal with myself. I'm like, okay, if you can't write a poem about your trauma, then write a poem about how you can't write about your trauma. And there is a poem in Good Morning to Everyone Except Men Who Name Their Dog Zeus called I Can't Talk About It. And that's the very first poem that I ever wrote about my sexual assault. Um, and I wrote about how I can't talk about it, right? Like literally. And that really opened up the gates to write more and more. And as I've written more and more, it's gotten a lot easier. And I would say that sexual violence, sexual assault has been a common theme in a couple of different books that I've written. One, which is obviously published through Cephalo Press, another that has not been picked up yet. But future projects, projects that I'm working on now, they are not about sexual assault or sexual violence. I'm trying to, not that there's not more to say, which there is, but I do want to explore other themes and other topics.
Okay, I'm glad you spoke about that. I actually wanted to ask you about a couple of poems that you wrote. So I was going through some of your work, and there are two, three poems that I want you to talk about. So in Feral Press, one of your poem got published. That is Callisto, sorry. And the second one is the effects of rape on the human body. I want you to talk about them. About your experiences, or the process of writing about it, or if there's anything you want to share about those particular poems, please feel free.
Yeah, so it was important to me to have some of the most common Greek myths in the book, and that includes Leda, which is in there, Europa, Ganymede, and some others. And Callisto is obviously a really big one out there. What I did with that poem is it's a contrapuntal, so it's read three different ways. There's one column of a poem, another column of a poem, and then you can read it across. So it was just kind of an experimental thing for me. One of the big things about this book is that there are so many different poems in it, and that was intentional because Zeus comes to these women and these men in different forms, and you never really know what's going on and who you're truly talking to or truly engaging with. So it kind of keeps the readers on their toes, which, like I said, it was intentional. And so that was really important to have in the book. Now, as far as the lightning poem, that's a found poem. I think I found it on allthat'sinteresting.com, and it was the effects of lightning on the body. And I said, well, wouldn't it be interesting if I took the word lightning and replaced it with rape? And so that was in the original poem. I just did the swap. And then when I was doing edits in the book, I realized, like, actually, wouldn't it be interesting if I said that I was trading these words, but I actually never used the word rape. You just kind of inferred it. And so that's what the final copy is. And it's whenever I read that poem at an open mic or a reading, people always react very strongly to it.
I actually love that both those poems, and when I was reading them, shivers sent down my spine. It was like really, really, traumatizing to read about even such things. So I really hope that we don't have to succumb to these experiences, or face them ever. So being a trauma survivor, I can completely relate, and appreciate you for being the way you are.
Thank you. I'm glad the book spoke to you. I'm sorry that you've had to experience what you've experienced.
Another poem that I want you to talk about is a poem that published in Frontier Poetry, and that is on Pennsylvania Road. Yeah, I want you to talk about that poem.
So that poem I've written a lot of poems about family, but they've been more centered on my mom, and the neglect that I experienced growing up. But then I started writing more about my brother, and that was one of those poems. It's just kind of detailing the relationship that we had when we were younger, and how close we were, and then how we fell apart. And that was, I think, to date, Frontier might be my biggest publication, and so I was really excited and surprised when they picked up on Pennsylvania Road, but pleasantly surprised.
Congratulations again for earning that publication. So I can
Thank you.
completely understand. It's such a big press and such a prestigious press. So definitely, it's a big win. Another thing that I want to ask you about is about your chapbook, Stranger Furniture. I think it is out with Neon Hemlock Press, or is it forthcoming?
No, it came out last year, and I've actually sold out the run. So it's no longer available. I tell people, like, if they are interested in the book, tell me on Hemlock Press. They may be open to doing a second run. So it might be available in the future. But Strange Furniture, I submitted to Outright, their chapbook contest last year, and honestly, I it was on a whim, and I was like, I'm never going to win this, but let's try it out. And then I remember I was on a boat with my wife, and I just happened to check my phone, and I was like, oh my God, I won. Like, I can't believe I won. And they were like, please don't announce this yet, blah, 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 blah. And of course I announced it immediately to my wife. And I was so excited. And working with Outright, working with Neon Hemlock Press has been wonderful. Like, they took into account things that I wanted in the cover, any edits in the book. They were very amenable to what I wanted. And I appreciate that in a press. And then Outright's been very supportive with doing readings. Like, I just did a reading last Thursday with them to lead up to their festival. I'm doing another one later on this week for the actual festival. And they're just great. Like, they're they're highlighting queer poets and writers, not just poets, but yeah. So I'm just really excited to have that book out. And I hope that we can do a second run, but I don't know if that's in the future.
Congratulations for that. I want to ask you about another big achievement of yours. That is, you became a finalist for the Glass Chapbook Poetry Series, and as well as a semi-finalist for the Button Poetry Chapbook Contest. And apart from that, you also earned Best of the Net nomination, or you were a finalist, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
Which one to talk about first?
yeah, actually, I want to talk about all those achievements, and your have these achievements changed your worldview towards writing or the process of publication?
That's a great question. So I think, obviously not winning, but I do consider these wins. Being a semifinalist for Button, being a finalist for Glass, being a finalist for Best of the Net, it's definitely put my writing in a different light for me. So I feel more confident, and I'm like, okay, you might think that this poem is lousy, but other people don't think that. Like, they're reading it differently, and there's definitely something there that you're bringing to the table. So don't count yourself out. It's a great tool to use against imposter syndrome, basically. And I'm really proud of these achievements. I sent Button Poetry just put out their finalist lists, and I'm not on it for this year, but I haven't fully been counted out yet. I haven't received a rejection email, so I'm still, maybe something's going on in the back end. But Glass has not sent out their finalist list for this year, and I'm hopeful there. Best of the Net, I have not received a Best of the Net nomination yet this year, but there's still, what, I think 2 months left to be able to be nominated. So hopefully.
These are such great achievements. So many congratulations, and I really hope that we get to see more of your achievements in the future. uh, I want to ask you about, since you are a managing editor of Barrel magazine, so I want to ask you that do you think it's natural for writers to become editors to stay close to writing?
Yeah, I do think it's natural. And I have found that being an editor at Barron Magazine has made me a better writer. I get to read hundreds of poems a month, and I can see where new writers have experimented, or established writers have experimented, and like the topics that they're writing about. And many times I've been inspired to write after reading a poem in the Barron queue. So it definitely seems like a natural um, milestone for a writer. Like, definitely not it's not something you have to do, but I would recommend it in your career to volunteer to be an editor in some magazine, because you get to see the back end of things. Like when we're submitting and we don't get chosen, we're heartbroken, right? But like if you get to see the other side of things, you realize how heartbreaking it is to reject a writer. So I think it's a really good balance.
Okay, I want you to read any of your poems or multiple poems that you want to share with people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't know why, but I did not expect that. So I don't have my book with me. Can you give me just a second?
Yeah, sure, sure. Take your time.
Okay. Did you want to repeat that question? I don't know how the continuity is for that.
Yeah, sure. So I would request you to read one or multiple poems of yours that are your favorite or you want to share with people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think because we've talked about it and because it's such a pivotal poem for me personally, like being able to write about trauma, I think it would be great to read. I can't talk about it. So that is from Good Morning to Everyone Except Men Who Name Their Dog Zeus. I can't talk about it. My gut, that vengeful city of insomniacs, swaps tales of trauma with the loose twilight. Terrified of optimistic things like the sun, it drowns my sealed lips in caffeine. I survive on muddy irrigation and anxiety, hollowed and hungry, nibbling on fingertips that stretch for perfect words and refuse to let anyone within spitting distance of this soft underbelly. My tongue, that talented freight train, has been known to tap out the rhythm to anything goes, but when anything went, everything went. And I am going anywhere and everywhere. Are you following? I can't talk about it. It's like a scream that keeps getting caught in my throat, but the scream is a pair of men's hands, and his cufflinks snag my vocal cords, just like his fingers snagged my closed eyes, dragging me from a peace I will never have again. My mouth, that deceitful poet, spoke forgiveness, but how can I forgive my skin collapsing in on itself? My bones drop away even as I stand here. And the only thing I can do to stay together is shove myself into pockets of an oversized sense of loss because I swallowed his apology and his 3 paintings of a single taupe flower, as if jeering at the femininity he stripped from me, as if he knew this was the 5th time my body has been deadened in this way. My womanhood, that lost and weakened wheel, squeaks, even as I weep to keep things moving along. Every day I am misrepresenting myself. Am I the apple, the serpent, or the whole damn rib cage? Protecting a man who refused to protect me. For years, I have been howling on the inside, raking my soul red and raw with the need to tear this story out of my body, and I still can't talk about it. So yeah, that was the
I
first
have
time
I have no words, honestly. More power to you, and it's a brilliant poem.
thank you. It really opened the floodgates to writing about it. So I'm so thankful that I had the presence of mind to just be like, if you can't write about it, write about how you can't write about it. Was there anything in here that you wanted me to read specifically?
You can read any of your poem that you want to share. You completely free.
Sure, sure. So this is one that I don't actually read a lot out loud, but I think is important to highlight, just because we deal with trauma in different ways, right? Like there are women who express it in anger, right? And there are women who just kind of clam up. And what I've realized through a series of therapy sessions is that I always thought that I was like clamming up, and but I realized that I'm actually very angry, and I'm just kind of taking it out on the wrong things. So that's what this poem is about, because this situation, the title actually happened, and it made me think. When I tell friends my therapist suggested anger management, they all say, but you don't get angry. My therapist hands me a padded club and points to a couch pressed against the wall. Hit it, go on. And I stand there with the answer blistering in my fist. But beating the shit out of a lumpy sofa indicates a loss of self-control and command of my own body. My therapist asks me to put my hands to his shoulders and push him away, screaming, no, over and over again until my objection bounces around the room. Even as I strike the bone of his button-up shirt, I refuse to burst. My therapist tells me to plant my feet firmly on the ground, breathe deeply, and say, I am good enough. The lie clings to my mouth like a hot palm.
I loved the poem. I really loved it.
Thank you.
Uh, I really have no words, honestly. I really hope that you are doing okay. I hope everything is fine. If you need a break or something, if you want to have water, please feel free.
Um, no, I mean, I don't need a break. The great thing is that I have read a lot of these poems quite a few times, and so I've gotten to a pretty good place about it. Like if they were super fresh, then maybe. But I think I'm in a good spot. But thank you for asking. I guess I will read one more. And um, since we went over this one, I will read The Effects of Lightning on the Human Body,
Please, please.
which is a found poem substituting the word lightning for rape. Like a gunshot, it causes both exit and entrance wound, marking the victim. White, hot substances burn, clothing shredded, shoes and socks thrown off. Many survivors do not remember being struck. The only evidence is burnt, displaced clothing and marks along the body. It will cook brain cells, rendering them useless. Memory issues, trouble with concentration, severe headaches, all of which last decades after the initial strike.
Thank you so much for sharing these poems with us. I can completely understand how difficult it must be for you to write and then to share them. So heads off to you.
Thank you.
I want my last question to you is what advice would you like to give to people who pursue poetry not as a hobby but want to take it as a career?
Yeah, so my mom, she has always instilled this one phrase in me, and I have held on to it so tight because it has been some of the best advice that I've ever received. And it's just try, like, just ask, because all they can do, the worst that they can do is say no to you. Like, so send your stuff out, like send your poetry out, apply for grants and fellowships. Like, if you have the money, submit to contests, because the worst that they can say is no to you. But you might get a yes. And following that advice has gotten me so far, much further than I have ever anticipated that I ever would be.
Such a powerful advice. Thank you so much, Lenny, for your time. And I'm really, really honored that you share those poems with me and your journey as a writer. So, and congratulations to all your achievements. And I'm really hoping that we will get to see more of your books and more of your achievements in the near future. Really, really anticipated. Uh, so we will end the interview and then we will start the the post interview session for a while. So let me just. Are we done with the recording?